Hey, sorry, I just had a quick question on the prebiotic.
Yeah.
Because I hear about prebiotics, probiotics, and then both kind of together. What's the difference between them if somebody asks?
Yeah, so a prebiotic is works to restore the gut and create and basically help the good bacteria fight off the bad bacteria. Um, a probiotic is what actually the gut makes itself. So if you can get the right prebiotics into the gut, it can make its own probiotics. A lot of the time, putting a probiotic on an inflamed gut is like adding fuel to the fire, really.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and probiotics are just more commonplace because
Yeah.
of really the marketing around them, because they're easier to make. They're easier. They're also more. We also eat naturally more probiotics. Prebiotics are harder to find in our diet now because of the
Right.
food.
Okay.
So you always want to advise a prebiotic
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
and then somebody may never then need a probiotic, but sometimes probiotics are also needed. But it's kind of step one and step two. So the prebiotic feed, so this is a dietary blend. So it's 9 prebiotic fibres, and they feed the good bacteria in the intestines, and then that creates that balances that microbiome, so balances the environment in the gut, basically creates a healthier gut environment, and then the gut can then make its own probiotics, which
No,
is bacteria.
that's so helpful because I think like you mentioned the market out there, and I've got friends say, "Oh, I'm taking my probiotics," but then if they've not got a healthy gut, which most of us haven't right now,
Yeah.
then that's not going to do them any good, and they're not being given the right advice. Well, you can just go and pull them off a shelf, can't you? And so, okay,
Yeah, and also things like like Actimel in the supermarket. I mean, that's
yeah,
just pure sugar, and it's a lot of synthetics, which any you don't want any synthetics in your gut at all, because it
yeah,
actually just creates the problem. It's like a
yeah,
vicious circle.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's where it's just a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding, really.
yeah.
So yeah, it's I was just trying to get a little term for you here, like um so from like probiotics, fermented foods such as yogurt. Like I always say to people, if you're eating a really good natural Greek yogurt every day, you will be getting the probiotics you need. um and it's really, whereas prebiotics are much more difficult. And it's really about getting the it's getting the balance between the two. So it's getting people to understand that you have to restore the gut before you feed the gut. So the prebiotics restore a healthy gut environment, whereas by adding in a load of probiotics, it can just overwhelm the gut and actually can really do more harm than damage.
So
Sorry, more
restore the
harm.
gut first, and
Yeah.
then replenish the gut.
Yeah, and then you want to kind of feed the gut. But the gut can also feed itself, if it restores itself correctly, and then it can create its own probiotics.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I don't want to take your time, but I just think this is really important, isn't it, to
Yeah,
understand
100%.
this? Because I, for years, have been interested in my health, and I've gone to functional medicine practitioners as well, where they've given me probiotics, and yet, so I don't want this all to be about me, but 12 years ago, I had E. coli poisoning. And at no point, I mean, I was treated by the NHS and stuff. At no point did anybody say afterwards, you need to look after your gut. And then I started getting all these health problems like my hair falling out, aching, just generally out of whack. And then got really ill later down the line. But this is like news to my ears, yes, thank you. I
It's
just
it's
wanted
you know
to,
it's it, it, it's so important, and I think like when the gut lining becomes damaged, you have to heal that gut, and that's where probiotics play a big role. And you know, it's the kind of big misconception. So I suppose the only time you really need a probiotic is if you've been on antibiotics. So if you've been on antibiotics, it's a probiotic that you will need to take after being on a course of antibiotics. Now don't quote me on this because I don't know, but that is the only time, that's the only one I'm really aware of. Is kind of, that's a definite probiotic. Whereas prebiotic, is that first step. It's like really restoring and putting those good fibres back into the gut to help it really itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
It's so clever, like our guts, you know, it's so clever, and all the different fibres play a role. And actually the ZinoBiotic, which I think is just incredible, the blend of all the fibre, so the fibre blend in the ZinoBiotic creates something called I'm going to pronounce this wrong, butyrate, and that actually kills off a lot of very harmful bacteria in the gut. So you need the correct fiber to actually create, like to actually make these necessary kind of enzymes in order to kind of keep a healthy gut. So if you're, you know, if you're putting lots of probiotics in, but you haven't got these necessary, you know, it's like a chain reaction, right? So, and that's a big kind of philosophy of Zinzino. That's why when it comes to health, we start at the cell. We start at the very basic foundation. And we build the cell up, we get the cells working properly. The same with the gut. We're restoring the gut first. We're taking it back to its like original form, and we're building it up. And it's that kind of going back to basics, starting at the beginning, rather than kind of just jumping on the bandwagon of, oh, you know. And a lot of the time you see probiotics and prebiotics combined. That is just overwhelming. Not many people's guts can handle pro and prebiotics all together, but a lot of supplements out there are both. But a lot of people, that's just too much. So that's where this is most people can tolerate the ZinoBiotic. Start small, start on like a half a scoop, and the goal is to build it up to 2 scoops that your gut can handle that. Big important thing is to make sure you're drinking enough water with it. But if that's kind of the goal.